So I apologize to the group that's on the chat because online because I'm going to be walking around a little bit and asking for some volunteers. But you'll see the slides and you'll get to see the videos and the links and so forth. So I really want to thank Phyllis for inviting and hooking me up with Corey and the Monroeville Library for hosting us tonight for our Eagle Talk. And we have a wonderful group of people here in the room as well. Unfortunately, the group that's online, you're not going to get one of these squishy eagles, but everybody here will get a squishy eagle for coming today. Along with that, you're going to get a sheet of paper. It just talks a little bit about the nest and how you can get to our link, and so just some information about Irvin and Claire. So my lovely Vanna assistant up here, my wife, Lady Di, will have that. If you do leave early, just see her. She has the eagles for you, so I want you to go. So as you see on the slide, my name is Don German. So I'm the plant manager for U.S. Steel. I have 33 years with U.S. Steel, all in the Mon Valley. I grew up in Smithton, Pennsylvania. We moved to Jefferson Hills in 2000. So I'm a part of the community there. And, and Irvin Works is a part of the Mon Valley, which is actually in my plant, there's 850 employees that report to me. And there's in the Mon Valley over 3,000 employees with Clairton, Edgar Thompson down in Braddock, Irvin Works, and then also and Fairless, I have responsibility for. So in part of my presentation, you're going to see Irvin and Claire, took refuge at our facility, and I thought it would be really cool to do these presentations. We've given over 1,000 of these out so far over the past year, and I've reached out to over probably 4,000 students in the community for a number of different schools. I love doing libraries and getting a lot of the dialogue and questions, so I hope you enjoy the presentation. Today's presentation is going to give you a little bit about the history of the bald eagle, some fun facts. We're going to talk about the U.S. Steel nest, and then our wonderful story of Rosie that we had last year that we rescued at the plant. So we'll get started here. It's not okay. So hopefully this doesn't come. So, some fun facts about it is in 1782, when actually that's whenever the national eagle was named a national bird, there was over 100,000 nests in Pennsylvania or in the United States, and that includes Alaska. So it's very important to remember, right? And then from 1917 to 1953, actually the eagles had a bounty on them. They were paying 50 cents for an eagle if you brought it in. How sad was that? They paid out over $100,000 in bounty. And the reason they did that was because there was this myth that, if you look back in the day, they had posters of, eagles stealing babies and livestock and chickens and all this stuff. And then people were going out and, and killing these beautiful birds and salmon hatcheries and everything like that. So it was in 1940 that actually Congress passed the Bald Eagle Act in order to protect the bald eagles, which outlawed killing, disturbing of eagles, as well as possession of eagle parts, including feathers, eggs, and nests. But Alaska continued to hunt them down, right, until 1959. Yeah. Is that what? Was not a state till back then? Yeah, yeah. And so then what ended up happening was, and I think a lot of people would ask on chat, like a feather, right? The feathers I have up here are goose feathers because you're not allowed to have an eagle feather. If you're actually walking around and you do happen to see an eagle feather, you're allowed to pick it up. You can take a picture with it, but you have to place it back down. You're not allowed to, to take that with you. Yeah, so a lot of things, but it wasn't until, the DDT that was used extensively after the mid 1940s that the bald eagle population declined catastrophically. So it caused the DDT end up causing the eggshells. So when you look at the eggshell, it became soft. So whenever the mom, the dad are on it incubating, that shell would crack and it would not go for full 35 days. So we really weren't generating the juveniles, right? And so that was actually the huge demise of the eagles. And Alaska never used DDT. So because they never use DDT, when you go up there and do a cruise ship or whatever, you'll see a ton of eagles, right, in Alaska. And that's why, because they never had that DDT. So think about that. I told you just on the slide before, there were 100,000 nests. By 1963, there were only 417 nesting pairs found in the lower 48 states. Went from 100,000 to 417. So DDT was banned in 1972, in Canada in 1973. And at that time, we had talked earlier, there were only 3 nests in Pennsylvania. That's it. All of them were in Crawford County, just north of here. So how sad was that, right? That we only had 3 nests. But it was the Pennsylvania Game Commission that started, and it was really cool. One of my coworkers, it was her uncle was one of the game commissioners. So I can't wait. She's supposed to hook me up and be able to talk to him. But there were 2 game commissioners that were mainly involved with it. They went up, they got 88 Saskatchewan eagles, brought them back to Pennsylvania. They imprinted in this area. Those eagles, which our eagles are a descendant of, or Saskatchewan, took refuge, made nests, and started that comeback of the bald eagle. A lot of states, did that as well. And some states didn't, some states did, but that's what Pennsylvania did. So in 2007, you can see my graph that I have on the screen. You can see from the 400 and some nests back in 1963, all the way up how they've come back somewhat, right? And it was in 2007 that the lower 48 states hit 10,000 nests and came off of the endangered list, and in 2014 met all the recovery criteria to move to protected status, which is where they're at. So here I was showing you or we were talking about the Pennsylvania map, and you had asked about the one at Allegheny where you're at. Yes. Every little dot on there is a nest that's confirmed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Now, I made a copy of this last year. Ours wasn't on this map. It is now, because I talked to them, and remember, because I told you 837 was coming through, and I asked that engineer, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's on there." So
anyone can access this information?
I think they took it down because they don't want people just going to, because, right? So, but if you see the Susquehanna, right? So there's the main river, and it doesn't even show the river, but that's the river, right? Up in here in Crawford and Pontotoon, that's where they're mainly congregated. But you can see they're starting to come down into Pittsburgh. And like I said, there's a number of nests that are not on here that are in the Yacht area, our nest, like I said. So it's really cool. But what's really neat is look at the number now, 71,000 nesting bald eagles. So what a comeback from 416 or 417. And there's estimated over 316,000 bald eagles out there, because not all of them are pairs, right? So the ones that the 71,000 are the pairs. So really cool to come back, and I just love that story. So, and as we were talking, you said about pollution. Well, you can't have bald eagles with pollution. So the Game Commission, I love this quote from Officer Bergman, you need pristine air, pristine water for eagles to habitat. And so, it's an honor and a privilege that Irvin and Claire chose U.S. Steel to make their home. And we've done everything. They have their own fire brigade. One of my workers called last year and said, "Hey, the railroad was down below and their brakes locked up and it caused a little brush fire." And he's like, "Hey, there's a brush fire below your nest." Well, it was like 100 yards down the road. I called my head of dispatch. I'm like, "Dude," he goes, "I'm in Harrisburg. I don't care where you're at. Get your fire brigade down there," right? 3 fire companies showed up. There's this poor guy on the railroad putting a fire, he's like, looking, and here comes West Mifflin, here comes Travosburg, and here comes U.S. Steel down to help them put this out. So I have cameras because I was really worried about intruders and people trying to mess with my nest. So up top, I have cameras that watch the railroad to make sure that there's and it really works, because the other day I had to go down and reset the cam, and my head of security called and says, "Hey, my guys just called and said there's a Jeep down." He goes, "Just me. Don't shoot." So a couple of videos I'm going to show you. Let me see if I can move this. Participant has enabled closed caption. Okay. So a lot of people ask, what's the most dangerous things for eagles? And I never had this into my slides, so you're the first ones I put this in, is fishing hooks. And the reason I say that is because this year we had a huge scare at U.S. Steel, and there's another nest that actually the mom brought in a fish, but there was a fishing line that was out of the fish. It got wrapped around the two little eaglets. And unfortunately, it damaged and cut the one eaglet to the point where when they did try to finally save that eaglets, both of them, the one was able to make it, the other one did not, and ended up succumbing to the injuries. So when you look at fishing line and fishing hooks, it is huge and can be very dangerous. So I got this video I made from our nest. So what's really cool is I can make videos from our, pull this up. Yeah, so if you look real closely, you're going to see this is Hop. He's eating a fish. There's the hook. Do you see it?
He didn't like it.
So thank God he didn't like it, but you can see the hook is right there. And this could have been a huge bad outcome, right? If he swallows the hook. And so I've put this into my presentation now so that I can talk to kids. Remember, I told you I did over 4,000 children. And I thought, what better way to tell your dad or when you're fishing, even if we start with that generation. Look, I'm a big fisherman. I never thought I'd trout fish, and I always thought I was doing the fish a favor. And if I caught a fish and I couldn't get the hook out, well, I'll just cut it, and then the fish will digest it or it'll erode, and the fish will live from it. In the meantime, if another predator comes in and eats that, then you can really lose that eaglet. So no more of that. But I figured, from an education standpoint, it's really good to be able to teach. And thank God, as you see in this video, he drops it or she drops it. It goes down into the nest and never to seen again. So I was really excited about that. Yeah, tell me about it. All right, so. The other things would be collisions. We were talking, they're typically scavengers. So a lot of the eagles you see will be along the road. And the eagles they think they're the biggest, they're the apex. So as you're driving along, they may try to, not take off fast enough. And a lot of eagles, owls, animals of prey get hit by cars. And then lead poisoning. So I was talking to Tamarack, who was they saved Rosie. One lead BB can kill an eagle. So if if you happen to be out and you have a camp or whatever, or if you have rodents and you shoot that, just make sure you bury the carcass or try to protect that, or obviously go into steel shot. Electrocution. I have tons of steel tires. They drive me nuts. My guys will send me videos of the birds, eagles flying up on my tension towers. I am looking into there's certain things you can put on there to prevent them from landing on there. It's mostly juveniles, because the juveniles don't realize how, that if their wingspan touches and they're too close, that they can get electrocuted. And then the last one is poison. So especially rodenticide. So poison to kill rodents. So I think there was an incident that was recorded that they were killing rats at an old apartment building trying to get rid of it. Well, not realizing that the eagle was coming in, getting the rats, taking the rats back to their babies. And then the fledglings were dying because they were eating the poison that killed the rats. So you just got to be cognizant of that. So eagles, we're their biggest, enemy. So we just got to be, cognizant of that and do what we can. Now, with the best part of the presentation, I'd like to introduce you to Irvin and Claire, our U.S. Steel resident bald eagles. Look at that beautiful sight. So Irvin and Claire, like I said, they're sort of not like red birds, right? And my wife always tells me it's only in birds. When you look at a cardinal, right? Brilliant red, black, beautiful head. That's the male, right? And then the female in the cardinal is real dull and, more. So you can tell the difference when you have a cardinal at your bird feeder, which one's the male, which one's the female. That's why she says only in birds. In eagles, you can't tell them apart. So they both have the brilliant white heads. They both have the brilliant white tails. The only way you can really tell them apart is the weight difference is one way. Eagles in this area, this latitude, can be anywhere from 10 to 14 pounds on average, right? But the males are going to be 10 to 12 pounds. The females are going to be the bigger ones, 12 to 14 pounds, just because she does all the work. So that's one way. And if you have a nest like you do, typically you can tell which one's the male and the female. So we can tell because of over 2 years, and I still get confused. I know some of us in here do. Yeah, the male is the one on the right. He is more the military guy. He wears his feathers straight back, slick back, right? Really cool. If you look in his, if I zoomed in his right eye, he has a dark iris that is right at the 8 o'clock position, which matches the female from Hayes. Mama Hayes has one at the 6 o'clock position. I think it is somewhere around there. So kind of unique. He is, smaller in size, and he has like the black around the eyeliner, we call it, and around his eyes. So that's one way you can tell. The female, Claire, named after the Clairton plant, she wears her hair like a punk rocker, right? I always say she goes down to the Mon River, she goes fluttering around, and she comes back with this awesome moose job, and she just has that look in her eye like, Irvin, don't mess with me. I'm going to kick your butt. She definitely rules the roost and, is the leader of the nest. A little bit bigger in size. Like I said, she's probably more 14. However, in the summertime, when she loses her weight, they're about the same size. It's very difficult to tell them apart. These are just some of the things, the slick back hair, the black eyeliner. We know that Irvin is 8.5 years old. So I'll talk about how long an eagle can live. But we talked about when they get their white head or maturity is about 4.5 years. And we know that nest is 4 years old. So we know that he's 8.5 years old. And I'll show you a picture of that. Claire, it's an older woman. So somehow he got hooked up with an older girl. We know that she's at least 9 or older. And it's just by the plumage that we'll be able to talk about. She's larger in size, the punk rock hairdo, and the feather around the neck is more.
This is so hard.
So
it's nice. Okay.
If you're on, anybody that's on, if you can mute, I'd appreciate it because I can hear you. So this is a great picture of Irvin 4 years ago. So one of my workers took this, and what's unique and how we can tell is if you look at the darker beak, dark around his eye right here, not a defined plumage right there. So we know that he was about 4.5 years old. So if I look at this here, and I got a slide that we're going to get to show everybody online. So he was about right here, right? Claire, she was here, more defined. So we know she's at least over 4.5, 5.5 years old. So this is and we're going to go back to this. So, so we know Irvin is 8.5. Love the picture with the American flag too. It's pretty cool. Oh yeah, I got that one in my office. So really cool picture here. I always do with the kids. It's really cool. I say, raise a hand. Who thinks this is Irvin? And half of them say yes, half of them say no. So this is Irvin. This is Claire, right? I should have did it with all of you. This here is this year, and this is Hop. So we're going to get to see. Let's do a video here. These juveniles, they look bigger because their feathers are bigger. We're going to get to see this. But he can be really aggressive. So somebody was saying, oh, does the parents kick him out of the nest? I think Hop or the juveniles typically kick the parents out. But this is our nest. This is Cam 1. You can see like they're all just a happy family, in the nest. Oh, well, Hop will get kind of angry. He wants fed, right? And so you'll start to see him moving back and forth. That there is an old carcass from a catfish that Irvin's getting rid of. And look at Hop. He's just looking at him like, what are you doing? So, yeah, well, you're right. I got another picture. So Robert Bevan is one of my workers, phenomenal photographer. This is from the South Yard. You'd never guess this is in the mill, right? But we got the American crane. That's Irvin flying there. So really cool picture. I love the Mon because now a lot of the kids, that's Glassport that's across the ways, but you can really get to see the barges. Those are empties going down, and you can see industry at its finest, and U.S. Steel's biodiversity having eagles and great horned owls and everything there. There's Irvin looking over his kingdom, just ticking out. They love it when the barges go by because that sort of churns up the fish, and then you'll see him dive down and grab it. Irvin has the record for our nest. Claire had it 56 seconds, went down, got a fish and brought it back. Irvin did it in 46 seconds. Oh. So he went down. I'm like, what's going on here? There, Irvin goes. Next thing you know, Irvin comes back with a fish. I was like, wow, that is one good fisherman. Love this picture. So we have this on our Still City Eagles. Robert says if you go on there, if you want to download it, you're more than welcome to. This is Irvin flying. Here's Irvin here with the wingspan. We're going to talk a little bit about the wingspan. And then I always love this, and this is my Top Gun photo that Robert had. And I think this is Irvin and Claire. It might not be, but I always tell the kids, this is like kids playing out in the playground, right? They're having fun. I mean, for some of this is territorial, it can be, but they're just doing it at 10,000 feet up in the air. So, but, you know, doing their barrel roll, you know, upside down and just having a good time. So fun facts, you know, when does a bald eagle get its white head? Well, you sort of know that right now, right? 4.5 years. A lot of kids, a lot of people, adults, I did. I thought, hey, they come out with it, right? Yeah, you come out with a white head. Not the case. So when you take a look at this photo here, you know, a juvenile is totally dark, brown feathers, the entire body of the eagle. And one fun fact is the eagle's feathers are 7,200 feathers that are on the body. The ones on the body itself is the shield, because it shields them from rain, it'll protect them and so forth. And then you have their primary feathers, which will be their flight feathers, right? So they have 10 that are right here on their primary, 15 that's on their backside, 12 tail feathers, and then 15 and 10 on that side. So the juvenile you can see there will be brown. Then after 1.5 years, that's probably where Rosie's at now, right? More of starting to get that marble look. 2.5 is all marble, beautiful. And then they're sort of in that wonky phase, getting the 3.5 where they're trying, you know, becoming mature, probably teenager stand. And then they get their white definitive head after 4.5. But it's not until 4.5 years that they look for their mate and they can find their partner for life. So this is a great picture of Rosie. Last year when we end up rescuing Rosie, she's the one on the left. That's the juvenile. You could tell all the dark feathers. The one on the right is Nora. She was found along the banks of the Erie Lake. A little girl found her washed up. They thought she was dead. They end up rescuing her at Tamarack. She's about a 3-year-old. So you can see the marbling. That's my favorite. I love it when they look like that. But Rosie at first was pretty mean to Nora, but then they became best friends. Both of them were released, and Nora was just released on January 20th, I think, of this year. So very good. So eagles, I know you're going to ask. So average age in the wild is 15 to 20 years. But the oldest that's documented bald eagle in captivity is 48 years old, and the oldest in the wild is 38 years old. So with Irvin being 8.5, he got a long life ahead of him, right? And hopefully that he'll be here and Claire for another 30 years and celebrate their wedding anniversary 30 years from now. As I said, eagles weigh around 10 to 14 pounds, and that's in this latitude. When you look in Florida, they're only going to be about 6 to 10 pounds, with the males being 6 to 8 and the females being 8 to 10. So a little bit smaller, right, in size. And yes, they are partners for life. So the wingspan on a bald eagle is almost 6 to 7.5 feet. So wanted to get somebody to come up and help. So can you come up and help me? Can you come up and help me?
What's your house?
No, don't want you to grab this and walk that way, right? So you're gonna walk, wait, right there. That's the wingspan of an eagle. So 7.5 feet, right, from tip to tip on a bald eagle. So it's really cool when I do little kids, because I make them stand here and their wingspan is about 4 feet, right? And so it's amazing when you look at how big that is. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Me either. When you look at an eagle from tip to tail, it's about 3 feet. So if I look here, you know, where the eagle is flying tip to tail, that's about how big. And if Claire would come and stand right next to me, it's about 2.5 feet. So she would be about right here on my side. So when we rescued Rosie, she had a 7.5 foot. Well, at that time she was probably a 7 foot wingspan. But when we released her, she was 10 pounds and 7.5 feet wingspan. So she was a big girl. Back to that. Top speed flying 35 to 43 miles an hour. However, I did hear, if you're coming down on a downward swoop, they can't hit 100. The peregrine falcons are really cool. They can dive at a pigeon at 200 miles an hour when they're going after them. What I really love on the eagles, 4.5 times better than humans better in my eyes. They can see a rabbit at 2 miles away. So I always, when I did Thomas Jefferson, I related at the football field. So I think it's 31 football fields. And their eyeballs are the same size as ours. So imagine that with an eagle's head, but your size eyeball inside there. So most of their head, there's eyes. And they can see a rabbit at 2 miles away. Their grip strength, so I'm a pretty strong guy, is about, 3 to 4 times better than what I am. So if I'm gripping this, right, they're that much stronger than me. And think about it, that's because they got to come down, they're going to grab fish. Everything they do is with their talons and with their legs. So they're coming in, they're grabbing sticks off of trees, they're breaking them, flying away, and everything that they do. So they're very, very strong, and you don't want to, have that. I was very scared whenever I was, we were working with the Game Commission getting Rosie, and I'll tell you that story when we get to there. So when you look here, I think I said on the, I can't see it. Let's see if I can move that part. No, I don't want to mess with that. Eagles can lift about 1/3 of their body weight. I know what it is. It's carnivores. So little kids, hey, what's a carnivore? So somebody asked earlier, what do eagles predominantly eat? Well, an eagle is is in the sea eagles. So they predominantly eat fish. So probably 85 to 90% of their diet is going to be out of the pond. So carp, bass, trout, brought in some huge palomino trout. I was really bummed about that. Smallmouth, largemouth, they brought in suckers. So a lot of different species of fish they'll bring in. However, 10%, they'll bring in roadkill, seen, squirrels and different things of that nature. So they can lift about 1/3 of their body weight. So if they're 12 pounds, they're going to lift about 4 pounds. So the old thing, they're going to take my dogs away. That's not the case. So, they are typically, I've seen Irvin brought in a carp one time. And I mean, this carp was this big, right? And I'm like, how did he lift that thing up there? Well, when he flipped it over, all the other side was eaten. So him and Claire had a dinner, and then he was able to fly it in. So this is a really cool video of now this is not one of our eagles, but I thought it would be cool to show, and the kids love it. This here is a bald eagle. You can see how it's coming in with its talons. If you put your hands up, that's about how big those eagles are, or the talons are. You'll see the dorsal fin, grab, go. Look at it, look straight down. It finds it, grabs it, takes off. It typically will grab it from the head. That way it doesn't, it can kill it. It's not going to flip. I love this video here. There's a portion. I mean, look how big those talons are. And the grip strength is so strong. Kids love it. So unfortunately, my cameras are not that good, but I can show you Claire bringing in a fish. This is a large. Now this is our camera 2. Oops. Oh boy, did I screw that up? Okay. Let's try to see. Okay, here we go. Back. This and this. So you're going to see Claire come in from the side. Come up there. Now, typically what will happen is the parent will bring in the fish, and then the juvenile, or the in this case, and here comes, everybody's fighting over it, but the juvenile will end up mantling. Mantling is called whenever the eaglet or the parents will come in and sort of like kids that are fighting over their own sister's food or brother's food, come over and they sort of go over top of it. But what a beautiful view of the Mon. I mean, it looks like you're on the lake, up in Pymatuming. We really special. All right, so let's go to, so the juveniles, somebody had asked, right, when they fledge the nest, typically it's around, their first flight will be around June, end of June. Ours was June 23rd. Hayes is a little bit ahead of us, so theirs was earlier in June. And then typically they'll come back, in this case, I think it came back 7 days later, which really made us a little bit nervous. But probably for the next month or so, the parents will start bringing food in, the juvenile will come in, have lunch, have dinner, blah, blah, blah. But eventually the parents got to teach them how to hunt, and they'll stay at the river. And usually they'll leave the fish and they'll eat on shore, and they'll do those kind of things because they want to stop relating the nest to food, because they don't want that juvenile to keep coming back. Because guess what? Come September, it's a season all over again, and we're ready for next year. So you got to get that juvenile, and sort of like the kids, right? Kick them out, and they're on their own. Not you. The male juveniles will come back within 100 meters. Like I said, they'll fly 2,000 miles away. They'll be down in South Carolina, North Carolina. Typically, the males will come back when they want to find their mate, usually about 3.5, or when they're 4.5 years old. So somebody had asked, so the Hayes nest is 5 miles. So this is the Hayes nest. Here's the U.S. Steel nest. What's really cool is Braddock, where Edgar Thompson plant is in between, and the Clarendon plant is right here, 1.2 miles from our nest. So
you don't need to do it. But if we can get,
if you can mute yourself, please. And then so those three, our 3 plants are right there, and our nest is right here on the Monongahela. So really cool to be there. So now about our nest. So our nest is in a sycamore tree, one of the most beautiful trees. It's white. It's 100 feet up in the air. And as I told you, it goes river, 837, railroad tracks, tree. And I mean, that's how close we are there. And then it goes up a hill that you're going to hear about that's 80 feet to 100 feet up, and then another set of railroad tracks, and then another 80 feet up, and then plant our U.S. Steel plant. So I'm a good tree climber, but I am not climbing 100 foot up in a tree. So I hired a tree climber to put our camera up, and this is him right there. So you can see how big the nest is. 6 foot wide, 4 foot deep, probably weighs a good 500 pounds. And he's 6 foot, 200 some pounds. And he looks, he could fit right in there and nest himself. So he then jumped across, and you can see him here. I'd have broke that. And then he climbed up this tree, and that's where the camera's at. So that's our camera that's up in the sycamore that's on the other limb, looking about 30 feet into the nest bowl or nest cup.
So is he putting in camera 1 or camera 2?
That's camera 1. I put camera 2 because it's on the hillside, and I'm standing right there. So camera 2 is like level with me, looking at the nest. So here's a really cool. So let's take a look. So this is cam 1. It gets a great view of eggs, the hatch, the feeding. It's really cool. This is live right now. So there's chat that's going on. What's really cool about this camera is you can go back in time about 12 hours. So if there's nothing in the nest, we can go back and see if Hop was in earlier, which he was, but I don't know if I'll find him. Like I said, now they're very infrequent that they're coming back in, and you got to find it at the right time. Oh, there he is. So the timestamp, there he is up on the branch. He's just hanging out, and then you'll see, I don't have it here, but a great takeoff for, into it. So this camera looks at the sycamore tree with the river to the right and the mill to the left. And then the other one, like you saw, looks at the mon from that side. So I encourage you, if you can go on, it's awesome. There's chatters that are on there. You can see Colleen, White H2O, E-Bar's on there, and a lot of people that, can help you. If it's a blue that's on there, if Annette gets on there, just ask her questions because she'll answer anything. But you see the wrench that's on there, they will answer questions. Those are our moderators that are on chat. So let's get off of this. And okay. So eagles use the same nest year after year. They do They can bring in 400 sticks. So imagine that, bringing in 400 sticks. Now, yeah, I will tell you, right? So if I brought in the 400 sticks and now I just had 2 little eaglets and they're pooping everywhere and they're eating, you saw that carnivore thing that was on there before. Well, I can't get a cleaning agency to go up there and clean it. So they bring in 400 more sticks the next year. And the next year they bring in 400 more. And the next year they bring in 400 more. So eventually this nest gets to be pretty big, right? A lot of people think that the nest is where they sleep. That is not the case. All birds, the nest is strictly for babies and for eggs. That's it. Other than that, like for the next 3 months, they're not going to sleep in the nest. Claire's had enough of that on the eggs and doing all that. She's going to they perch on the limbs, right? So I always show this for the kids. The largest nest ever recorded is 9.5 feet wide. So you saw us with 7 feet, right? 9.5 feet wide. It's 20 feet deep. It weighed 6,000 pounds. So 3 tons. Right? It was in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1963. Unfortunately, that nest broke the tree and it ended up falling. This is not that nest, but this is a cool picture of a nest. So now this is a replica, but I just read that they took this down. So if you went to, it's in Ohio, in LaGrange, Ohio, it's no longer there, I think I read. But really cool. This one here, I think, is about 12 feet high, not 20 feet high. And there's 2 young girls that are there that gives you just the idea of how big these nests are. I think what's unique about this nest, or maybe it's St. Petersburg, the Hayes nest, when it fell, built a nest in 4 days after it fell and was able to lay an egg in the 4th day. This nest did something similar. When it fell, those parents had to build another nest and did it in 4 days. So there was a lot of similarities between the two. They'll sleep with one leg up and they'll attach to the branch, right? And they have a muscle or a tendon in the back of the leg that they'll lock it in place, and they'll just sleep right there. And on camera, we'll watch them. Their eyes will be closed and so forth. And they'll just sleep on the branch. So this is kind of a cool video. This is Irvin bringing in, actually it's Claire. But as I told you, Claire rules the roost. So I always use this example with kids, right? If you and your mom and dad, you get this, new sofa, and mom wants a sofa over here, and dad wants a sofa over here, and mom wants a sofa over here. Who wins? Mom, right? So here comes Claire. There she comes in from the back. You see her flying, and it's a perfect landing. And that sticks. So the female, even though the male typically predominantly brings in the sticks, the female does the placement. She's the engineer of the group. So you will see Urban trying to put it here, and watch that thing go to the right. And there Claire goes, no. I want it over here. And they will do this for 15 minutes, and we call it stick wars. And no matter what, Irvin finally gives up, and he'll go and sit on a branch and say, you put it where you want it. And it's the most funny, the funny thing that they do. So when I say she rules the roost, she rules the roost. Let's see, go to, so every year when we talk about around January timeframe is the mating season, February, and we call it fish gifts. So the male, we have to prove that we're worthy. So every year the male has to bring in a fish, and he is not allowed to eat it. He brings it in, he drops it off, and Irvin's young, so he's kind of dumb, and he thinks that it's dinner time and we're going to share this meal. But Claire comes in and she squawks and just beats the crap out of him, and then finally he just leaves. He's finally realized that I need to eat the head of the fish before I bring it in, because I know I'm not going to get any of it whenever I bring it in. So he brings in the fish half eaten, drops it off, and then gets the heck out of there, because Claire is coming and you hear her squawk, and it's time. She wants fed and she wants her fish. And then it's just really to prove that he can provide for his kids. Egg laying occurs in February. So Hayes is typically February 14th timeframe, Valentine's. We're more, because we're a younger pair, more end of February, 28th. I thought that we were going to be earlier this year. Turns out we were the same day as last year, February 28th. Bald eagles, their clutch, we talked earlier, is typically 1 to 3 eggs, commonly 2. And only rarely 4. It's very rare that they do. In Pennsylvania, there was a nest this year and last year. It had 4. But like I said, because the eggs are typically laid 72 to 96 hours. So after 72 hours, you know, to build that egg inside, and boop, she'll plop the egg out. And then boom, if she's going to have another egg, it'll start from that point 72 hours later from there. So it's really cool. We talked about earlier, not real wood. I have these 2 eggs. They're here, right? A chicken egg that typically they'll lay an egg every day, you know, whatever, the size that we eat breakfast, blah, 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 that size. A eagle egg replica is about this big. So you can see the difference in the size of that egg. But an eagle will have a clutch once a year. If she would lose that clutch, she could have another one. It's not unheard of, but typically in February timeframe is when she's going to be laying these. And we're all sitting there wondering when, you know, when's it going to happen? And then we start the clock again because we know 72 hours after she had the first one, there's a good chance she's going to have the second one. So, but that's about the size. Some people, before I got this, you would relate it to a tennis ball. So the size of a tennis ball would be another replica of it. So our egg laid this year on 2/28, 7 p.m. So really cool with eagles. So this is Claire. You're going to get to see the infamous eagle wipe, or brow wipe. So every time, for whatever reason, an eagle, when she lays her egg, will do a brow wipe. That means she had it. She didn't reveal it yet, but we know. You see how her feathers are all puffed up in the back? That's labor, right? And she just delivered, and she's a proud mama. Now all we're doing is waiting for that baby to show. And if I scroll out, I think it was she was real bashful. She didn't reveal that baby till right there. And then voila, we all jumped up for cheer, and then we saw an egg. So very exciting times. That was one proud mama and one proud uncle. So bald eagle's temperature is 106 degrees, right? Our temperature is 98 degrees. Incubation is 35 days. So after an eagle lays her egg, it's 35 days after that, because you have to keep it at 99 degrees, right? At that. So a lot of people will say, and I was the first one, man. Last year, Claire had her first egg, and I'm like, and it's cold, right? It's February. I'm like, Claire, get your butt on that egg. You know, it's going to get frozen. And they call it delayed incubation, because think about it. If you have your first egg and it's 35 days, you don't want, if you're going to have another egg, you don't want to start that incubation, because you don't want this one to be born 72 hours before this one. That gives it too much of an advantage. So what ends up happening is, a parent, eagles know best. They'll jump on, they'll stay on a little bit, she'll get off of it. And then when she has that second egg, if she stays on it, at that point, you probably know you're only going to have, you know, 2 eggs or so. So we call this the broad patch. You see the patch that's on the picture? That there, every year she'll lose, and he will, the male does the same, they'll lose this patch. It's here, and there's blood circulation that's there. So what the purpose of that broad patch is to cool, or is to heat that egg up to 99 degrees. So what will happen is the male or the female will get on, and they'll snuggle in, and they snuggle those that egg around that broad patch. And they'll do that, and they have to do that for 35 days. After 35 days, now we're all looking for this, you know, the hat, or the pip, which is peep in progress, and it's the start of the crack of the wonderful egg. So the both parents assist. However, the female does most of the work. She does all the night, and if Irvin tries, she just kicks him off, and then she snuggles in, and that's her job. So a lot of the kids I go over, like if I go and I put my hand on this, right, which side's warm and which side's cold? Well, the side that my broad patch is on, right? So who warms this bottom one? Well, every 2 hours around that, the female or the male will get up, they'll go their beak, and they roll it. And when they roll that egg, then they'll snuggle back on top. Main thing to do is to get that nutrition, get the egg, the homogeneous, you know, for temperature. So it's always doing it. Both male, female will do that, the infamous egg roll, and you get to see that. So this is one of my favorite videos. This is last year. This is March 6th, I think it was. And there's Claire. Claire is a great mom. She's sitting there all night. All right. We got 6 inches of snow. All the snow's on her. You can see her starting to get up right there. There she is. This was actually on the news. We sent it to the KDK. And so she's been there all night. She shakes it off. You got to watch. You don't want that snow to get onto the egg. So she's taking a look. So what does she think? She's been there all night. What do you think she has to do? She's got to roll that egg. She gets up. She's a great mom. She rolls that egg.
She rolls and then she gets back.
Well, wait, she got to stretch. I mean, she's been there. Look at that wingspan. She's like, oh, yeah, look at that. I got that going, right? And now she's got to go to the bathroom. So I always go with kids. Look, if you ever see an eagle that lifts its tail, run, because it is going to poop. And watch Irvin's face. And whoop. I mean, look at that. Oh, yeah, Irvin's like, what was that? Yeah, I got to go. And there goes the tail. So like tail goes up. So, you know, it's funny. And he just went, whoo. So our friends back there, Annette and Jerry, told us about this wonderful place called Conowingo Dam. So I thought of this because when we went to Conowingo Dam, there were 150 eagles everywhere. I'm in eagle heaven. I'm looking out with my binoculars. There's 12 in this tree. There's 10 in that tree. And then there's 1 in this tree. And I thought to myself, if you see that tail go up, I'm within. And so I always use the kids and I say, hey kids, how far do you think an eagle can poop? Right? So I get a little kid and they'll come up and they'll grab it. There you go, you grab it. 11.5 feet. So all of you, it's not if Claire or Irving was here, so you drop it. So the kids all love it. And one of the kids I worked with, his dad, he said, you know, of all the things you taught him, the only thing she came home with was how far an eagle can poop. I said, how far? He says 11.5 feet. I go, she was right. So all right, so now we're at the point where we've have our nest, we brought in our sticks, we laid our egg, we're incubating for 35 days, right? 99 degrees. And so now it's time for that hatch. And so usually it's around March, April 5th, sometime around there that we'll see what we call the pip. That there that you see, right, is the tooth that's coming out. So every little eaglet, when it's born, has on its beak this little egg tooth. And this tooth, it's up to the child or the juvenile to get or eaglet to come out. The parent cannot help it, right? And so when you look at an egg, it has 2 membranes. There's the outer one and there's the inner one, right? And so oxygen can get in, and it's whenever that eaglet breaks through that first inner shell that it takes its first breath. Right. And we don't see that until we get the external pip. But you can listen to the mom trying to listen to the baby or listen to the eaglet coming out, and you can hear it chirp. We can't, but she can. She knows it's about to happen. And we look for the external. And when that happens, oh, man, it's a roar, for everything. So you can see that when that happens and you get that crack, usually it's about 24 hours for the eaglet to crack the whole way through and to come out. The mom will help at that time, or dad will grab the shell and maybe roll her out. That's what it does in this other video. But it's sort of like, come on, get out. It's time to go. So I thought I had the video of Hop, but I guess I don't have it on this one. So Hop, this year we raised $2,600 for Tamarack. Tamarack Wildlife Center is a group that's up in Crawford County. They're not state funded. They're not federal government. They are strictly by donations from good people. And so we decided this year that we were going to do a naming contest. Since we only had 1 eaglet, and it was USS 6, we would do a name. So we had 5 different names. We had Pierogi, Hannah after the pierogi. We had McCutcheon's kid, Steele, actually US Steel, but Steele. We had Hop, We had Edgar after Edgar Thompson, and then we had another one that we had a sixlet, and we raised $2,600 and we donated that to Tamarack. And how Hop got its name was it's very rare to catch it on, especially in the wild. But Hop was sitting there. I mean, the egg was sitting there, and honest to God, out of nowhere, this egg elevated. It just poof. I'll show you the video. I don't think I have it. Yeah, and I'm like, what just happened? So we made a video of it. I'll pull it up. And all of a sudden, if you look, that egg just whoop, elevates out. So we called it Hop. And that's the one it won. And so he's been named Hop ever since, USS 6. And really cool. But it was great for their fundraiser. So these videos are this here. Like I said, this year we were USS 6. So next year we'll have USS 7 and so on. Hayes had this year, which was really cool, H19 and then H2O. So it was really cool. I always want to call them water. The next year for Hayes, it'll be H21. So that means they've had 20 eaglets that have successfully, fledged their nest. That's awesome. So, and we're on number 6. So like I said, we're a younger pair. But one of my favorite pictures, and this is from our camera, the view right there with that little, now that's last year, I think that's 4. This here is 4 and 5 from last year. And then you can see it is the most gentle thing. Mom will come in. Mom does most of the feeding. So dad will bring in the fish. Mom kicks them out. She'll grab a piece, turns her beak very gently, sticks it towards the baby, and the baby will take that, piece from mom. When they're first born, they're only 20 ounces, 3 ounces. They're 20 nickels, I think is what we equated to. But after 1 week, it'll grow 500% in 1 week. I mean, that's how fast that they grow, just like a little teenager. So this is a really cool video. So some great shots. They turn out to be this little, fur ball, right? So if you look at, I think I have the other slide, but these over here. Well, let me do that. I have it on the screen, so we'll get to that here in a second. But let's show the video here. So this is Hop this year, and this is mom feeding Hop. But ever so gentle. I mean, how cute is that? And so Hop, look at that. They call this a crop. See that big ball just there? That means he's eating well. And with only one eaglet in the nest, let me tell you, that's one large eaglet. But little Hop there, you can see it's more of a gray. And earlier pictures you saw was white. This gray is really good because now he can thermal regulate. So he doesn't need mom to be on, or dad to be on top of him. He can thermal regulate during the night and so forth. She'll still lay with him, but at one point he's too big for, to get underneath. But that crop is huge. Sure it doesn't play. Okay. Yeah, so here's what I was going to show you with those slides over there. So think about it this way. So usually the lifespan of an eaglet juvenile fledge is about 90 days. So think about the first 30 days of life. It's all about getting, the bone, the skeletal, and you can see they turn from this white, pretty fluffy, fur that's there. And at that point, you need mom to be on, or dad to thermal regulate. And eventually at that point, it's all about getting stronger, right? Growing. The next 30 days is all about growing the feathers. So this is their wonky stage where, they kind of look, look at that picture there. They look bad, right? And then they turn into this 8 to 10 weeks, beautiful juvenile that's there. And in the last 30 days, it's all about learning how to fly. It's about branching, and it's taking that first step and that first flight off of and you pray to God. It's like your kid going on a bicycle or taking a car. You're like, oh my God, please fly, and don't crash. But that's sort of the whole 90-day thing. So they can be very aggressive. So this is Hop, and in one of his tantrums, as we all know, lovely Hop. Yes, spoiled is a good. So here we're going to listen to a. Look at that. That's mantling there. So he's mad because Irvin brought in a stick. He's like, dude, what are you bringing in a stick? Go get me food. And he's just yelling at that screeching noise, right? And watch, pushes him off the nest. Go. Bites at his feet. I don't know. Runs at him. Now he's like, just mad. That is the epitome of a spoiled little, yes, very cute though. So this is a heraldic pose. So some people call it the quarter pose. So when you look at a quarter, right, the back of it, that's the pose. So this is a great picture. This is last year, Claire posing like that. It was a hot day and the eaglets are behind it. She was actually shading them from the morning sun. The sun comes up over Glassport and then it'll set behind the mill. But she was protecting the babies as from the heat. It was really, really cute. So the toughest part about a juvenile is, like I told you, is anybody can fly, right? It's the takeoff and the landing that's really comical. But they need to strengthen their wings. So we call it winger sizing. They'll be in there, flapping their wings, flapping. Hop, I think he jumped 5 feet the one time, and he's just really getting that takeoff and trying to exercise, right? So what they end up doing is they call it branching. And all it is going from the tree or the nest to a branch, and then the branch back, and then this one to another branch, and then back. And they do that, and they practice and practice and practice and practice. And a lot of it is because of balance, and a lot of it is just getting enough courage to do that, right? And so I have this video down here. We'll show this picture later. So this is Hop's first branch, or first branch. So we're all sitting there watching it on chat. I actually missed it. I was going down to my boss's office, and then one of my moderators, D, calls me and says, hey, he just popped. And I'm like, just branched. Oh, and it's a perfect landing. So you can see he's like kind of like, okay, I got this. All right, I'm good. Oh. And he goes, I have enough, and he jumps back down into the nest. But he's all good. That was his first one for this year. Now he's a pro. I have this. I think I have a better picture of that. We'll come back to that one. So like we said, a juvenile will come back to the nest for the next month or so. The next step is to learn how to fish, hunt with mom and dad. They'll do that down the river. They spend most of the time down the river. Eventually, they stop relating that nest to the food because the next season's coming. And then in the next 3 years, it's all about survival. So for that juvenile, it's like stealing off of somebody else. You'll see they'll start to scavenge a lot more. So a lot of times you'll see a lot more of juveniles by the roads because that's their easy kill or easy prey or easy food. So be careful when you're driving. So the story of Rosie, this is my last part of my presentation. I hope you enjoy it. It's a touching story for us. Rosie was last year's juvenile that fell from the tree. So last year, it was really touching for us. I was actually at my niece's wedding. We were coming back from New Jersey. I had asked Wendy to watch the cam for me. And right then, all of a sudden, the brother or the sibling knocked Rosie off the nest. And it was like her first week she was ever on the branch, and she's real timid up there. And he didn't mean it. He wanted to get back down to the nest to try, to get his food. But he's like, come on, Rosie, get the heck out of my way. And then just knocks her off. So here, but I'd like to introduce you to a really cute picture. Ready? Oh, look at Rosie. That's a beautiful pic. That's Dana's picture. And then there's 4 or 5 in there now. And then here's, this is 4 and 5 last year. You can see the wonky. One of the things that's really neat, I want to show you this picture. Look at their beaks. See how their beaks are real dark? They don't get their orange beak until 4.5 years. So it's sort of how you can tell as they age. The other thing is really neat to look at their eyes. See, their eyes are real dark. They don't get their golden eyes until 3.5, 4 years old. So it's one really neat way of being able to age eagles. And then their big feet. Their feet are huge. They're clown feet. Okay, so here is the infamous video. This was on June 26th, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm in a hotel room watching this, puking. So at this point, wasn't really concerned. You know, all my friends, moderators, oh, you'll be okay. Well, see, 5's trying to get back. That's but what really good is, so knocks her off. But hey, look, 5, it's his first flight. There he goes. You see him flying off into the distance? So yeah, good job, 5. It was his first flight, first fledge. Unfortunately, thank God we had the camera because we were able to, can you see 4? So we see her here flapping. So she fell about 20 feet, but guess what? She still got 80 feet to go. So there she is. She stayed there for about 15 minutes and then eventually went to the ground. Well, unfortunately, with all the vegetation and the vines and so forth, she ended up getting to the ground and damaging all 10 of her primary feathers and all of her. There's Hayes. The second best. My buddy. So amazingly enough, right? So I'm driving back. We really don't see, 5 never came back to the nest. 4, we don't know where it's at. We had this camera. And then the next morning, or no, that evening, somebody said, oh, we just saw a bird, an eagle fly by the camera. I'm like, okay. Well, in the morning, all of a sudden, I get this, right? So we're all sitting there watching, oh, I wonder where Rosie, you know, or where 4's at. And then Rosie climbed 80 feet up, managed to perch herself on a dead limb right next to the camera and stuck her wing right in front of her. How do you do that? Right? There she is. I think she's on my camera. I don't want to move the camera because I'm like, oh my God, if I do that, I'm going to like flip her off. So she was smart enough to get higher than a nest and was going to try to make it back to the nest. That's what her goal was. What is, you know, unbelievable. Unfortunately, she failed epically because her tail feathers, she damaged all 12 of her tail feathers and she knocked off all 10 of her primary feathers. So I have a picture of it. Now, I think, let me see if I have, since you guys are such a good crew, I thought I had that. I had a video that I ended up, or camera, I went over and there's Rosie was sitting there. We were able to take the video and send that video clip to Tamarack. Tamarack came back, Carol Holgram, unbelievable lady. She says, look, that bird is grounded. She's not going to make it. You need to rescue her. So imagine this, right? So here's our timeline. 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday, Rosie falls from the nest. 9 o'clock in the morning no, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. We see the feathers. We send that to Tamarack by 2 o'clock. The Game Commission's called by 3 o'clock. The Game Commission shows up at 5 o'clock. We capture Rosie by 7 o'clock. She's at Harp by 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the afternoon. So within 24 hours, we were able to capture her. But the story is pretty amazing that I'm going to tell you here. So we go and I call the Game Commission. I'm like, hey, you know, we got this juvenile, blah, blah, blah. He goes, okay, Officer Denton's going to meet you at the front gate. Now it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So Officer Denton and I go down to the nest tree. And here, this picture here, is a really good picture. This just shows you her 12 beautiful tail feathers. They're all gone. These primary feathers here, gone. These are your secondary feathers, 15 of them. Oh, they were okay. I think we had 1 damage. Left side and all tail feathers. This just shows you on a juvenile. It's not Rosie there, but it's a good picture. There's Rosie. So you see the damage to all the feathers. You know, and I tell kids, like, right, if you're going to go swimming and you're displacing the water, that's how you move forward. Birds do the same thing, but they're using their feathers. Well, when they go and there's no feathers, you can't get any flight. So she tried 3 times, but just failed. And then she was strong. She climbed back up, got on that branch again, tried again, failed, came back around again, tried a 3rd time. So we knew immediately we had to try to save her. So Officer Denton and I head down. He followed me in his vehicle. As we get down there, if you look right here, this tree is right above me. So it goes railroad tracks, 5, the sibling was right there, and the nest tree would have been to my left, right? And so Officer Denton and I get there and we're like, oh, That's pretty cool. There's a juvenile right above us, 30 feet up in a tree, never left, right? Irvin came in, wanted to chase him off, but he still wouldn't leave. That bird was there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, never left. Because I went back out into the plant. I'm sorry, I should have started with that. At 9 in the morning, and I saw a 5 sitting there. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I got some pictures, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm like, all right, but he never left. So I come down and Officer Denton and I go, well, I said, hey, officer, I said, here's where the camera's at. I said, this is where the last time we saw him. He goes, okay. He goes, well, let's try to, we'll go down over where the nest tree is because she probably tried to fly and just, failed. I said, okay. So we go down there and it's hot, man. It's like, at this time, it's June 29th. I'm sweating. I got these goofy shoes on, horrible for climbing 100 feet up a hill. We're down there looking for a needle in a haystack. We can't find nothing. So an hour goes by and Officer Denton says, look, let's go back up to the top of the hill, get some water, and we'll, continue our search. I said, okay. So we go all the way up the top of the hill and son of a gun at 5 still isn't in that tree. So Officer Denton, and I was talking to Wendy on the phone. I says, hey, which way was the last time you saw it go on camera? She goes, I think it went to the left. I go, okay, well, that's where 5's at. So Officer Denton says, hey, maybe he's telling us where Rosie's at. So Officer Denton goes out around and all of a sudden he goes into the brush. And then it was all of a sudden Rosie tries to fly, but she couldn't. But we knew at that point we flushed her, we were going to get her, right? So Officer Denton goes to his car and he brings a fishing net. Anybody fish? Do you know what a trout? You know what a trout net is? About that big, right? I go, dude, you need a bigger net. This bird has a 7-foot wingspan, and you're going to. So he goes to me. He goes, hey, here's the plan. He goes, the bird's between you and I. I'm going to push it to you. And when it comes to you, I want you to put that net over its head. I go, dude, we need a better. Oh, that ain't good. So I do it. Right? I'm there like this, and I'm bent over, and here comes Rosie. She's coming. She gets to about right where the chair is, and I'm there like this. You mean how big I am, right? She looks at me. She goes, no way. Jumps off of the ledge. And now she sort of sails down and does a crash landing. And now I know why I say spread eagle. She was spread eagle in the tree, right? So now me and Denton's up on top of the hill. I go, dude, what are we going to do? I says, look, there's a deer trail over here. I'll run down. You stay up here and watch her. I'll get down to the bottom of the hill. And when I look, and I see her, you give me your net and you come back. So we do that. I'm down there. I go, I whistle to him. I say, all right, come down. So now she's probably right there. Here he comes down. I go, what's the plan? Because one would put the net over her head. You're going to hold her, and I'm going to grab her talons. I go, all right, dude. So we hold it over her head. I got her there. He goes up. He reaches up, grabs one talon, grabs the next talon. We get her down off of there. Now I still got the net over her head, right? So now we're getting, and that beak is 3 inches long. We take that off of there. That Rosie smacked him in the head 3 times. Wow! Smacked him. It was the fun. I giggled. I actually laughed. I'm like, dude, I'm glad it was you. So he finally gets her down on the ground. He tucks one wing in, tucks the other wing in, puts it underneath his armpit. He goes, all right, let's go. I go, where are we going? He goes, we're going to climb back up the hill. I said, all right. So I start going up, and I'm like leading the path, right? And I'm going up there. Well, there was a big log I had to climb over. And I reached behind to help him. Rosie went, boom, and she snapped at me and nicked me. Luckily, she missed, right? I go, hey, you're on your own, dude. I said, I'll come from behind and I'll push you, but I'm not reaching there again. So we get her all the way up. Finally, we get up to the top of the hill, right? Guess what he brings to put her in? A dachshund cage. So there I am, right? Sweating, that's all sweat. There's Officer Denton. Thank God he was young and skinny. And then I opened that cage up, and look at poor Rosie in there, like a stuffed pig in a. Look at that beak. Oh, let me tell you, let it snip at you. So we captured her. Now she was on her way to Harp. So that was awesome. Then on July 3rd, she goes to Tamarack. So how cool is that? America's bird going to Tamarack. So she lost 10 primary feathers, all of her tail feathers. So Kara Holgram calls me and says, look, don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to watch her for a while, but I'm consulting with all these other experts across the country. She goes, I think what we can do is called an imping process. I go, what is that? She goes, well, we have unfortunately a deceased juvenile that died from lead poisoning. I have its feathers. I called the federal government, got permission to imp those feathers into Rosie. And I said, well, what's that? Well, she proceeded to tell me that it's kind of neat. So when you look at and again, this is a goose feather, right? But a feather is hollow inside, right? And so this is the follicle that's at the end. So all she did, and if this was the damaged feather, she cut it so that all that was in Rosie was the follicle, and it's hollow, right? Just like a straw. So she took the follicle, measured a dowel rod, right? And then glued the dowel rod with Gorilla Glue, I guess, or something, and stuck it into the follicle. And then she took the feather from the donor, measured it to exact, and number 10 has to be number 10, number 9 has to be number 9. And she took that feather and she put it and glued it on. And so voila, Rosie has 10 feathers. That day she flew 20 feet up in the air. It was her first time she ever flew up to the top perch, and they have like 100-foot aviary. And it was her first flight. It was amazing, right? And so she says, we're still not out of the woods because we have to worry about her tail feathers, but at least this worked, right? And so at that point, we kept talking to each other, consulting, and well, I wasn't consulting, I was praying. And she said, look, the tail feathers are, we're worried, but I think we're going to get growth. So the worry was, do we wait a full year until she or do we imp those tail feathers? But Rosie's a tough girl. She grew all 12 tail feathers back. And in October 22nd, we released Rosie back to the wild up at Pymatummy. A lot of people said, well, why didn't you bring her back to the mill and release her? And the reason we didn't do that is because there's so many more eagles up there she can learn from. That day we released her, you're going to see 3 other juveniles came out, because I'm sitting there and when I go, oh, there she is. They go, no, that's not her. That's another juvenile. And I go, well, there's one. And they go, no, that's not her. That's another juvenile. And there was another one. I'm like, so she has a lot of friends, and it's a better place for her to be. But you can see the difference between like her feathers and what the juvenile or the donor feather was, right? And so she did that with all of them. So that was, amazing that we were able to experience that. So great question. So those, I actually called Carol before I got here. And I asked Carol, I said, Carol, how often do eagles molt their primary feathers, their flight feathers? And she says, every year. She goes, every year they're not like owls where they'll partially molt, they molt them all. So I said, so you're telling me Rosie this year is going to molt all of her feathers that have the dowel rods in? And she goes, yeah, she's probably in that process right now. So they won't molt them all at the same time, but throughout that year, they'll molt a few of them. So that's why sometimes you'll see juveniles in the first year will have they got longer feathers now, and it's more to help them learn how to fly, sort of like training wheels on a bike, right? So they look much bigger than an adult. So when they lose a juvenile feather and they bring in a adult feather, they're shorter. So when you look at a juvenile, sometimes they have long feathers and short feathers, from that standpoint. But she'll lose all of those or molt all those the first year. And she'll have regular feathers that are in there. So this is her first flight. There she goes. That's Carol there. So that's in the aviary. She flew 20 feet up in the air, and then she was able to do her first flight. So we were blessed to go on October 20th to be able to witness they call it like a what's the word I'm looking for? The pre-release. So they do all kind of like tests on her. But look at that wingspan. So they measured the wingspan. Her wingspan was 7.5 feet. And what they do, they don't drug her. They put a cap on her so it closes her eyes so she can't see, and it makes them real docile. So you can do whatever you want with them. And so they're measuring, checking everything, spraying her down. Look at the talons. So my lovely wife got this picture. I mean, those things are huge, right? The 3 inches. And I mean, they're big. And what they do is when they're in captivity, they dull them down for the protection of the handlers. But whenever it's time for going to wild, they use a Dremel and they sharpen those babies back up for the release. So we got to say a prayer. There's Rosie, there's Carol, and I got to, touch a bald eagle. How cool is that? And then got to say a prayer and was able to go out for the release. So here's her first flight. Compliments of Jerry in the back there, Davini. He was the videographer on this camera work. So it looks like I opened it up, but Carol did all the work. And here comes Rosie right at you. Now, what's unique about Rosie is on her left wing, where the donor feathers, she has a white that you'll be able to see. And it's not on the right side. That's because that's her donor feathers. And it's unique to Rosie for this first year, right? So she took 3 flights around. I thought she was going to poop on me. She flew right above me 3 times and then made a perfect landing in the tree. So we were all there proud. We looked, then the game commissioner kicked us out and said, okay, y'all got to leave. And we went and had lunch. So it's really cool. There's, I think that's, and that's her hat there. These are just some really cool pictures of the wingspan. I mean, you can see how big, much bigger box, right? Much better. What's unique about eagles is if you ever see an eagle, their wingspan is more like a gymnast where their arms are straight out, right? Where a vulture will be more of a V type. So just a little tidbit for you, and the strength of the bald eagle. They do have the marbling underneath on their first year, but the outer feathers are all brown. You can see the beautiful marbling there. And then Annette and Jerry went up to Pymatuming, sort of in the area where we released her, was able to catch this video of Rosie. There's some geese. I didn't put the one in there, but I think she chases one of the other juveniles, right? Wasn't it eating something? And Rosie wanted the food. So there was like 3 of them going after each other. But if you look real close, there's a wonky tail feather, which is when her feathers grew back on her tail, half of them were juvenile feathers and half of them were adult feathers. It's just the way that she lost them. And so they're a little bit wonky in the length. And obviously the white that's on the left wing that you can see. So really cool footage. And we were all excited. So my last slides here, Tamarack is not state funded or federally funded. So U.S. Steel, we were just so excited that she was able to, save Rosie. We were able to donate $20,000 to Tamarack. That helped. I didn't buy it, but helped her secure an X-ray machine, which she's used multiple times. I just called Carol, like I said today. She has 4 bald eagles now. Yeah, she's up to 4. So she goes, I got to go. I need to feed. I go, hey, you go. But they had one that fell out of the nest, just like Rosie, that they were thinking about doing imping on. So great area or cause, great foundation, great people up there. It's amazing. So just a little bit about our biodiversity at U.S. Steel. Our urban plant, we have 77 different types of birds. Monongahela has 75 different species of fish. 3 once endangered raptors, like we talked about, live on plant property: the bald eagle, great horned owl, peregrine falcon, and we do have red-tailed hawks. We have over 30 bluebird boxes. So a lot of my workers, we go out and we put bluebird. We have 300 acres, only about 100, I think, no, 600 acres, 300's under roof. We put 2 screech owl boxes up this year. And then I have a pond that I made my workers, my carpenter shop, make about a mallard box. And within a week, we had 14 eggs, and then they hatched. I'm down to 8 because Claire took a couple, but it's all the circle of life. Eagles know best, though. They won't take all of them because they know they got to leave some but unfortunately, she brought in 5 or 6 of them to the nest. So there's the peregrine falcon. Dana took these. I was able to get him onto Claire and plant property. So this is the peregrine that's there. One of the kids asked, where do eagles bath? Down at the river. And I know that Hayes' dad got pooped on this year or last year, so he took a couple baths down at the lake. There's my my floating duck box that we have at our pond. That's on plant property. And there's one of my guys with the screech owl. So last year we ended up having a great horned owl you asked about how they sleep at night. Well, Claire was sleeping on the branch and a great horned owl hit her at 40 miles an hour, knocked her right off the nest. great horned owls are known for stealing nests. They don't build their own nests, they steal them. So the concern was, I just spent $20,000 to put a thing up, and I'm going to have a great horned owl nest instead of an eagle nest. I was not happy. So I had my guys, we put up 4 great horned owl nests throughout the property, half a mile away, because that's their territory, hoping that they would take one of these nests instead of my eagle nest. And it turned out, never saw her again. So maybe Claire and Irvin took care of them during the daylight, but the owls will do it at night because they can see, and the eagles can't see at night. So we planted Christmas trees, and this year what we end up doing, since we're in West Mifflin, we had and I'm the plant manager, so it's really cool because I made my guys, each department, pick a tree, and they had to decorate it. And then what we did was a competition, vote on which tree's the best. And we raised money. We raised $3,600 for West Mifflin Police for the Adopt a Child fund for kids Christmas fund. So that was pretty cool. We planted last year way in the back. There's Christmas trees here that you can see. Probably 4 years from now, the plan is to have needy families come in, cut the tree down, and then give them Christmas trees, and then we'll plant more. So that's our goal there. And then every year we bring Santa. And I was telling the group earlier, Santa came, and it's really good when I do this for the kids. And so Santa will come. We leave his reindeers up at the plant. We stick him into my fire truck. So this is the same fire truck that went down to get the fire out. Claire was on the nest, and right when they came by, she took off. But it's funny, right there by that telephone pole, I was watching, and somebody called me and said, "Hey, there's trespassers here." Some people were down there watching video or trying to take pictures of the eagles, right? Well, I only live 6 miles from the nest. I was there in 10 minutes. They were gone, or they were still there, but they did never come back. So those are all there's Santa and his little elves. So the kids really love that. And so, like I said, all of you have been great. So you're all going to get a little squishy eagle. The sheet of paper will show you how to get onto YouTube. We have Cam 1 and Cam 2, but coming soon, Cam 3, Cam 4. Cam 3 will be on a telephone pole looking back towards the plant where 5 was sibling, because that seems to be where Hop and everybody hangs out. So, and then the other one we're going to put right above the nest looking straight down into the cup. So that'll be really good for theirs. So we have a Facebook group, Steel City Eagles, or our sister nest, Hayes Strong. And the same thing, when you go to pick cams, you can go to, our cams, Hayes cams, and I think pick cams has a number of elk. They have elk up in that you can look at. They have bluebird boxes. They have a lot of really cool cameras. So Katie so obviously please consider donating to either or both organizations. They both have wish lists. So Katie Kerfalis is the director of HARP. That's Humane Animal Rescue of Pittsburgh. That's where Rosie went first. And then Carol Holgram is the director of Tamarack Wildlife Center up in Crawford County. And that's their center. So special thanks to Bill Powers. He's the owner of Pick Cams. That's who I partnered with. Wendy Merle, an eagle educator. She always says, put a camera up. It'll be fun. So Eagles know best, and I'm going to put 4 cameras up. And there's all my friends, Dan in the back, Dana, Annette, Robert, Bevan, my wife, Diana, she's one of the photographers as well. And then Jerry in the back, my video guy, does an awesome job. So all of those people makes this presentation, happen. And I'm glad, thank you for everybody coming. And do you have any questions? Yeah. So fast. Yeah, but it's so small. I don't know. I think it would lose, right? It's on the apex is the predator is the eagle. So I don't think. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of pesky little birds that'll you'll see following eagles and stuff like that. But I think the peregrine's smart enough to just attack pigeons and not go after the bald eagle. That's a great question. But they're both raptors, right? They're going to go after meat. So, yeah. Yeah. No, amazingly enough, I was worried the one time, the one branch that's on that I was going to get pooped on, but you try to get 30 feet away, thus 11 feet, I don't get pooped on. But it's infrared, so they don't see them at night. It's white, so it blends in with the tree. So they really don't know. A lot of people will say, oh, I hear it, but it's internal to the camera. So we haven't had any, even the parents, when we first put it up, I was kind of worried about that, but we put it far enough away. Now, the one that's going to be above it, there's a lot of cameras that are out there, like Southwest Florida's have them straight above it that they don't bother. I think the other thing is ours are so used to humans. They're always flying over the plant. They're always in the south yard. I mean, they're so used to cars, trains, automobiles. So I think they're pretty cool with everything that's going around. So great question. Yeah.
The talents and the strength.
Yes.
I read someplace, I can't remember where, and tell me if I'm wrong or not. I've heard that it was noted that the eagle's strength is like 400 psi, whereas a human is only like 75.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would make sense because it's 4 to 5 times stronger than what we are. So, yeah. The strength of it, yeah. Yeah, well, you think about them coming down and grabbing fish and what, being able to take off for it. I've seen them in videos where the fish is too big and you can see if them swim. They'll do the stroke, right? But they'll mainly get to the shore and then they'll eat the fish until they can, fly. A lot of times when they're getting sticks, they're coming in high, grab the stick and, keep going from that point, or they'll go to the ground and grab something. But yeah, the strength is amazing. So.